Kade Ruotolo versus Andrew Tackett. There's a lot of people out there saying that this is the submission grappling equivalent to Stephan Bonnar versus Forest Griffin in the UFC, and I don't know if they're right or wrong, and quite frankly, that's not what we're here to talk about today. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the controversy surrounding the decision in this match. We're going to take a real close look at the rule set to determine if the judges actually scored this one correct or if they were off. Guys, this is Sean with PDMA, and today we're going to take a real close look at this match. We're going to take a look at why the judges called it the way they did, maybe why there were some disagreements amongst the judges. We're also going to take a pretty close look at the CJI rule set itself and see if these rules were applied correctly in this match. So before we get started, there's a couple things I want to say. Just like my last video where I broke down Kade Ruotolo versus Levi Jones-Leary, which you can check out here, we're not going to see any clips of this match in here. And now that's because Craig Jones did ask that people don't take out and clip a whole match from the CJI, post it, because realistically, a lot of this money goes to charity, and the money that isn't going to the charity goes to the athletes, and I don't want to be responsible for either of those two parties not getting money, so we're not actually going to put the clips in here, but I will have the full match linked below. Another thing that I wanted to quickly address was that if you hear me say anything about this competitor did this competitor did that, and at any point you think, hey, this guy is judging, this guy thinks he could do it better, I do not think I could do better than these two. These two are two of the highest level competitors in our sport. Any input I give on the match is purely Monday morning quarterbacking at best, and I'm going to try to keep my analysis pretty focused on what the judges said, but if there is anything, just understand that I'm going in this with the highest level of respect for Andrew Tackett and the highest level of respect for Kade Ruotolo. I'm also not here to cast judgment on any of the judges. Judging submission grappling live is a very, very difficult thing to do. In this case, we had a brand new rule set, you had an arena full of people, and you had $1 million on the line. That is extremely stressful. So I think all the judges at CJI actually did a great job implementing this new rule set. So any critiques I make are purely me watching this match a bunch of times, having the luxury to do so. So keep in mind that the judges did not have that luxury. Now, if there was a horrible call that you think is inexcusable, that's different. That does happen. However, everything I say in this video is based on me watching these matches through a ton of times, and they did not have that luxury while this was going on live. So before we get into a round-by-round analysis, there is something I want to bring up directly from the CJI rule set, and that's this concept of effective action. Now, this word comes up quite a bit, and it comes up most importantly in the judging criteria. So right now we're going to go over the two areas in the judging criteria where this comes up, and I'm going to go ahead and put direct screenshots from the CJI rule set on the screen so you can read along. The first place it comes up is under judging criteria ranked, subheading 1, initiating action. The highest reward is for initiating effective action. Attempting takedowns, guard pass, sweeps, submissions, etc., judges will give the highest reward to the competitor who is aggressive, the one starting the action, and attacking that leads to scrambles. The second place this comes up is in subheading 2, directly below. Close submissions and dynamic action. Dynamic action is takedowns, sweeps, passes, etc. After initiating effective action, progressing through control and positions to sub-attempts weighs heavy on judges. So we're going to cover this concept of effective action quite a bit, and for the sake of this video, I just want to set up a definition now for what effective action is going to mean for the rest of this video. So if we look at the CJI rule set, there is no actual definition, like dictionary style, written out for effective action. So based on the context clues here, I'm going to define what I'm considering effective action. And that's going to be any time one of the competitors initiates an action that either accomplishes one of the criteria listed or forces their opponent to alter their game plan to address the criteria list. So let me give a quick example. So if the two competitors are on the feet, one shoots in, and there's really no threat of a takedown. It doesn't grab a single leg, it doesn't get around the back. That's not going to be considered an effective action. What will be considered an effective action is if one of the competitors shoots, lifts up a single leg, takes them down. That's an effective action. That one's pretty obvious. What's also going to be considered an effective action is if one of the competitors shoots, grabs a single leg, and it would have taken that person's opponent to the ground, but that person's opponent needed to now alter their game plan to address that single leg and either completely strip it, reverse it, get a submission off of it, whatever they did. It altered their game plan. They're no longer standing looking for a takedown. They're either looking for a reversal, they're looking, again, for a submission, their own takedown, whatever it is. So, but keep in mind, the important part is that will be considered an effective action. So round one. Now, we're not going to do like a minute-by-minute analysis of this match. One, because it would take too long, and two, it's just not what this video is about. But we are going to break down each round, how it was scored, maybe address some of the reasons why it was scored that way. So in round one, what's actually kind of cool here is that the first two scoring criteria are more or less equal. We have initiating action, which we covered pretty extensively in the last part of this. That was pretty much equal. I think both of these guys came out hot. They were both initiating a ton of contact. I went through and tried to count initiations, and to be completely honest with you guys, I'm not a judge. I had a hard time exactly determining what was an initiation and what wasn't, but more or less every time I tried to do it, I came up pretty much equal. Scoring criteria number 2 also came into play here, close submissions and dynamic action. Now, were there super close submissions? That's, potentially debatable. Kade had the standing mirror lock attempt, and then Andrew had the rear naked choke attempt at one point. But I think really what scoring this round comes down to is criteria number 3 in the judging criteria, which is positional control / dominant control. In the rulebook, it reads, this is the last factor. If all else is equal, the competitor who controlled the match positionally or dictated the pace of the match will be rewarded. Now, if you watch this match, you know the pace of this match was absolutely insane. But there was a 1 minute and 30-second period where Andrew Tackett controlled Kade Ruotolo's back. I think that's what was important in round 1. I don't really want to spend a lot of time harping on round 1, again, for the sake of brevity, and 2, because all judges scored this round 10-9 in favor of Tackett. I personally think that was the correct call, and I think that most people agree that Tackett probably won this round. I mean, if you control somebody's back for 1 minute and 30 seconds, it doesn't automatically win you the round, but when all things are equal, and then the pace of this match just, again, being absolutely insane, they're going initiation for initiation. In my opinion, that's what won Andrew Tackett this round. Now, round 2 went a little differently. Again, both guys showing crazy pace, crazy initiations, and I keep saying pace. Obviously, pace is not a scoring criteria, but the reason I bring that up is because the pace of this match was dictated by both of them trying to control the match and both of them not wanting to concede an inch to any sort of initiation from the other. And so that's why, even though it's the top scoring criteria, I think we can more or less say that it was pretty equal with the initiations. Again, we can go back and count if we want, and there's going to become some debate in what was an initiation and what wasn't, and that's fine. And personally, I know judges that do that with each other. They score the same exact match and scores differently, and now they have to go and say, well, this was initiation because of X. Well, I don't agree with that. And it's kind of what we're doing in this video here. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to say that the initiations were more or less equal. Now, sub attempts. I love that this happened because I love that I get to talk about this. So my last video, I talked about submission attempts basically being the equivalent of putting your opponent in check in chess. So what I mean by that is I can enter a submission and it might not be a good submission, and it doesn't really force my opponent to do anything. So we don't really count that as a submission attempt. What we do count as a submission attempt, similar to what we said with effective action, a submission attempt is going to be anything that forces our opponent to address a submission. Kade Ruotolo attacked some submissions in this round. Now, if you watched this match already, and again, if you haven't, it'll be linked below, but Kade Ruotolo had a very, very deep heel hook entry. Now, Andrew at one point said he doesn't have it, and maybe at that point in the escape, he didn't have it. But man, did Andrew have to do some defensive maneuvers to get away from this heel hook. And actually, what was very interesting was we saw the alley walls come into play here when Andrew is trying to roll out of this heel hook, and he runs into the wall. And luckily for him, the submission had kind of been negated by that point, and he was able to make his escape. But I think this was a very deep submission attempt for Kade Ruotolo. In this round 2, Kade also had a Darce choke attempt. And if you've watched Kade Ruotolo before, the guy knows his Darce chokes. So when he starts putting a Darce on you, that's time to start moving. And just exactly what Andrew Tackett did. He was able to escape, but I think it was a legitimate submission threat. Andrew Tackett didn't exactly not have a submission attempt in this. Now, this might get a little controversial here, but, that's what we're doing here. And if you don't like it, that's why we got a comment section. By all means, please leave your comments. So Andrew Tackett tries to climb Kade Ruotolo's back. He is not able to catch the back like he wants to, so he initiates a calf slicer. To me, it looked like it was in pretty good. Now, it's hard to finish people with calf slicers, especially somebody as experienced as Kade Ruotolo, but he put it in. And Kade Ruotolo responded by grabbing a toe hold. So now that's Kade's third submission attempt. Andrew was locked into position for this toe hold too. I think I saw some people say that maybe this toe hold was just a Hail Mary attempt. I don't know that was the case. If you look at the position of Andrew's legs, he's locked in there. He's going for a calf crusher, but we're not here to talk about submissions. And the reason I bring that up is because just to say that I think it is a submission attempt, a legitimate submission attempt. Kade Ruotolo also controlled most of this round. And I think that this round, again, it was, maybe not exactly clear cut, but I think it was pretty clear that it was in favor of Kade Ruotolo. So two of the judges scored this round 10-9 for Kade. And then one of the judges, Miha Perovic, scored this actually 10-8 for Kade. So, that was big. And I don't know that I scored this round 10-8, to be completely honest, but I understand where Miha's coming from. I mean, this was a pretty dominant round from Kade Ruotolo. So round three, in my opinion, is where this match got very interesting. So I actually watched round 3 like 4 or 5 times on its own, not counting the 3 times I actually just watched this match through. And round 3, I do not envy the judges in this round. When I was going through and watching it, I tried approaching this from every angle I could. In fact, what I did was I went through and I said, okay, what if Andrew Tackett's camp was paying me? How would I score this so that he wins? And I went through and I scored it for Andrew. And then I did the same exact thing. I said, okay, what if Kade Ruotolo's camp was paying me like some guy in my last video accused me of doing, which, Kade, I'm still waiting on the check. Anyway, so I went through and I scored it and I said, these are all the way Kade wins. And so I scored it like that and really tried to do some in-depth analysis. So here's what I came out with. Andrew Tackett really controlled the beginning of this match. If you're going through and counting initiations, again, like a lot of good judges do in CJI, there's only a handful of judges now, but if you look at ADCC judges who have a similar scoring criteria, any good ADCC judge is sitting there with a piece of paper, a pen, and writing down tally marks for initiations. And if you were doing that for Andrew Tackett in the first half of this round, he was up on initiations. He was just a clear-cut initiator, which throughout this match, we didn't actually see much of. We didn't see too many clear-cut initiations. I mean, they were there for sure, but we didn't see either competitor run away with initiations like Andrew Tackett did in the first part of this round. So we saw Andrew Tackett make his way to Kade Ruotolo's back a few times, and actually one of the commentators, BMAC, he had something interesting to say. He said, Andrew's forcing Kade to turtle up and expose his back. So that sentence right now, keep in mind, BMAC is not a judge in this, while he does have a history of being a judge in other organizations. He's a commentator here. So, what he says it's not coming from the judge, it's coming from a commentator, but I think it's a very informed thing to say. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that's a really good example of somebody who's initiating effective action. Andrew's forcing Kade to go to turtle. He's forcing him to expose his back. If that's not an effective action, I don't know what is. So I bring that up to say, there was times in this match where we saw people initiating this effective actions. And this is a really good example of when Andrew truly was controlling this match. He was initiating all these actions, forcing Kade to move. So about halfway through the round, this round does take a little bit of a turn. Kade Ruotolo scores this crazy takedown, runs Andrew right down almost to the wall. I mean, it's so cool to watch. Just the fact that Andrew was controlling the first part of this round, and now Kade just takes over, he takes control. And here's the thing. When they get into this scramble, I think Kade kind of understood that he was down to Andrew. And if we know anything about Kade Ruotolo, I mean, this guy is not going to just give up the match because he knows he's down. And that's exactly what happened. Kade started putting on the offense, and he put it on real hard. Now, Andrew was able to address a lot of this offense. So I actually don't know if Kade scored more initiations, because this really takes it down to how you're interpreting the rules. And before I give my opinion, I am going to go over this. There is a part in the rule set that says judges will give the highest reward to the competitor who is aggressive, the one starting the action and attacking that leads to scrambles. So if you're interpreting this as the action that leads to scrambles, that actually seems like it would score heavier for Andrew Tackett. However, The part of the rule that immediately precedes this says, the highest reward is for initiating effective action, attempting takedowns, guard pass, sweeps, submissions, etc. Now, in the end of this match, we saw Kade Ruotolo attack, let's just say, a bunch of submissions. I think it was actually like 3 submissions. He had the Darce attempt, and he ended with a gogoplata attempt. In this judging criteria, that says attempting takedowns, guard passes, submissions. I mean, the Darce and the gogoplata were legitimate attempts, and, had there been a couple extra seconds in this round, that gogoplata looked pretty tight to me. Kade initiated that from the bottom guard. So for that reason, I think pretty much all things being equal, I gave this round to Kade Ruotolo 10-9. Because if you look at it and you say, well, I don't count that as an effective action, and that's fine. We essentially places them at equal as far as effective action initiation goes. We can go down to rule number 2, or judging criteria number 2, rather. Close submissions and dynamic action. Dynamic action is takedowns, sweeps, passes, etc. After initiating effective action, progressing through control and position to sub-attempts weighs heavy on judges. Kade Ruotolo had Andrew Tackett in a closed guard position after his Darce attempt and kind of held on to it while he was in closed guard for a little bit. That's a control position in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was in his guard, attacking submissions, and effectively attacking deep submission attempts. So that's why I scored this round for Kade Ruotolo. If we look at the judges' scorecards, it was a split decision. Miha Peravik scored this 29-27 for Kade Ruotolo. Zach Meslany scored this 29-27 for Andrew Tackett. Chris Crail scored this 29-28 for Kade Ruotolo. Kade Ruotolo, if you didn't see it, spoiler alert, was the winner. A little late for spoiler alert, but Kade Ruotolo won. So that is my opinion on Kade Ruotolo versus Andrew Tackett. Now, what I loved about the last time I did one of these videos was that the conversation in the comments was fantastic. Yes, there was just people that were there to, do YouTube comments, but a lot of you guys really did read through the rules and watch the matches pretty thoroughly, kind of like I did. And I really loved hearing your input. I mean, a lot of things you guys said actually made an impression on me and how I kind of watch these matches going forward. So if you guys have anything to say about this, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, please leave it in the comments. Let's try to keep it as civil as possible, but I understand it's YouTube comments, so, might be a lot to ask for. And while you're down in the comments, let me know which match you guys want to see me break down next. I'm having a lot of fun doing these. I have a couple planned, but if there's a match you want to see, let me know down below. And if you guys are interested in more submission grappling content, we've got match breakdowns, we've got some rule set videos coming out. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss those. If you guys want to support the channel in other ways, I'm very active over on Instagram. You can follow me at People Doing Martial Arts. You can also head over to pdmastore.com. We've got shirts like this. We've got camo hats like this. A bunch of cool stuff over at pdmastore.com. It's probably the best way to directly support the channel. But with that being said, I just want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.